Well, good morning, Susan. As I gave you a little introduction this morning in Spanish, and I just wanted people to know that if they have questions in Spanish or English, like during the session, please feel free to ask them. Si tienen preguntas o dudas durante la sesión de Susan, por favor, pregúntanos en el chat y nosotros podemos traducir las preguntas. But I see you have George is here, and he said he was joining for the session.
Yeah, absolutely. I have George showed up, and then my friend Ruthie Sloan, who's an amazing Canadian educator, showed up because we're going to be doing some interactive things here today, Dominique, and I shared this to you as well. And I really wanted to make sure that we had some opportunities to show that interactivity. And, you know, with our audience right now, it might be a little bit challenging, unfortunately, to bring the audience into the interactivity, but we want to be able to model how you and I and George and Ruthie from Mexico and California and Canada can all be working in the same space. So that's why I've got some friends here to help along. But today we're talking about Jamboard. And Dominique, I'll say this is probably my new favorite tool during this time, right? This is the tool that has just sprung up for especially my primary teachers. So just a quick little bit of background about what Jamboard is. This is a digital interactive whiteboard. And I'm very curious because I was talking to some friends last night about ¿cómo se dice whiteboard in español?
You would say pizarrón.
Picarrón. Because there was a pizarra or pizarrón was going back and forth. So we were just trying to figure out how would you say that? So pizarrón. Okay. Very cool.
It's the same word for whiteboard as it is for chalkboard. So there might be some people in the chat from Colombia or from Spain that have a different word. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So we were just curious like what that is. But yeah, so this is an interactive whiteboard and it's by Google. So it's part of the Google suite. What's nice about that is that kids don't need another account. They're not signing up for one thing. And if you didn't know it, Jamboard oftentimes is right inside your Google Drive. You go to the place where you'll get a new doc or a new form, and oftentimes it's right there. You can also find Jamboard just at jamboard.google.com. So today we're going to take a look at Jamboard through the lens of the primary learners. We're going to talk about early literacy and early numeracy. So really like that pre-K, K, 1, 2 perspective of how we might use this digital interactive whiteboard by Google. There's some contact information, but I'm going to go ahead and get rolling. Just a tour of this screen. You see at the top, there's this tiny thing here. I'll see if I can zoom in on it. That is the frames. So if you're familiar with Google Slides, you understand that those are often listed down along this side here. But in Jamboard, the pages or the frames are across the top. So I can see that this Jamboard has 18 frames. And I'm going to progress through the Jamboard today, just showing you a few examples. And we'll show how the interactivity works in Jamboard as well. Jamboards can be shared just like any other Google document. I could share it directly to an individual. So I can see up here in my upper right-hand corner, I see I've got some friends here, like Dominique is in there, and George is in there, and Ruthie is in there. Everyone is in there checking out this Jamboard. I can also see that it has the same sharing button that I'm used to with Google. I can share with a link, and I can share directly. So Jamboards can be used with your learners. So when we're talking about online learning, there's two words to kind of be familiar with, and that's synchronous. That's what we're doing right now. We're in the same place. I've got George and Dominique who will be working with me synchronously in a single Jamboard at the same time. We can also use Jamboard asynchronously with Google Classroom. If you're familiar with the sharing features of Google Classroom, you understand that if I could take a single document, like a Google Doc or a Google Slide, and the nature of Google Classroom allows me to take my one and distribute a different copy to each student. So one like Blackline or master, and I can hand it out to my students using Google Classroom. Well, Jamboard works that way too. I can take a single Jamboard that I design activity and send it out to my learners that way. So we're going to talk about Jamboard both in an asynchronous setting. That's what where we hand it out to the kids. And then right now we're going to look at it synchronously with learners. And I also want to talk about where Jamboard came from my teachers. And that was from this. Wouldn't it be nice when you're teaching online if you had a big empty slate on which you could write? My teachers were struggling because they would want to model writing or show something to them. And sometimes they get a piece of paper and like, okay, boys and girls, can you see what's here? Everyone, is it like, that's kind of what happens, right? They're trying to hold things up, bring it closer to the camera. Is it reversed? What's going on? We were really struggling with how we could write. So some parents or teachers would get like whiteboards and place it behind them, different ways. So Jamboard solved the problem of being able to write online. So it is very much a digital interactive whiteboard at the base level, you see I have some pen tools, some colors, not a lot of options or buttons here. And that's what's beautiful about Jamboard, is that I can write some letters. And, if you teach the primary grades, you know that I can show a letter B, but the actual formation of letters, having kids watch you as you write them, is huge. Now, I just tried to do that with my touchpad, so I'm doing it kind of like on the computer. But the cool thing about Jamboard is I can join in other places, and I'm going to join the same Jamboard. I have that Jamboard open on my iPad because it's an app I can also download. So Jamboard works in Google Chrome traditionally, but I also have the ability to download as an app to my phone or a small mobile device. Or if I have a touchscreen computer, I have this really great ViewSonic touchscreen computer where I can actually touch right on the screen. So depending on what you have, even just downloading Jamboard to your phone helps with this. So just at a base level, I can write. So I'm going to use my pen on my iPad. So I'm on a second device here, and I have and here I got George is saying, hola, hello, George. George is interacting with us. So George is in a different place, and Ruthie's there too, and they can write right on my Jamboard. So it's kind of like with kids, you put a whiteboard in front of them. I just handed Ruthie and George a pen to my whiteboard, but I could also do things like write a sentence like, I see friends. And again, we know if we teach the early grades that modeling this is huge. Now I can also grab a highlighter. So I have a highlighter tool that allows me to maybe highlight my high frequency words or my sight words. Or if I wanted at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add an extra page because we're having so much fun here. I'm going to add a blank page, and I'm going to move over to the blank page. Here I am on my blank page. I want to model writing a sentence. And again, my friends are writing all over this board because I gave them pens. There's a layer of classroom management. But what I love is that when I'm on that page, I could actually see who's writing what. As they're when they click, I could see George's little icon there. It's very tiny, but I know that icon is George, so I could see what George is up to. But if I'm trying to do a lesson on phonics and I want to say spell a word, so I have my word, and my word is, let's see here. I'm going to write bat. B-A-T. Okay, so I'm doing my letters, and I might have them watching me form that. I also have a laser pointer, so I could say, okay, boys and girls, will you sound out the word with me? B-A-T. Okay, let's put it together. Say the whole thing. Bat. So it's a really great way for me to model and share and show writing live. If I want to write a sentence or circle things, I can do that with Jamboard. So that's just at the base level. We have a whiteboard tool, but wait, there's so much more. I'm going to move over to slide 5. Slide 5. And here in a couple of minutes, my friends will be joining us. But here I have some pre-made activities. So this is a phonics activity. We want to talk about a word family, the IG words. So using Jamboard, I have a couple additional features here where I used what we call the sticky tabs. You're going to see some different use of the sticky tabs in a moment, but for now I'm going to be on slide 5, and my friends will be joining us soon, and I'm going to go spell my first word. And my first word I have here, I'm going to go B-I-G. So the same thing I just did with the pen, I can do with these pre-made word cards. How did I make those? Just with the sticky tab. I'll show you how in just a minute. So I have some letters, and I did that here. And I can actually use my pointer again. I'm going to use my laser pointer and go B-I-G. Say the whole thing. Big. And I see Dominique's live in there, and I say, hey, Dominique, will you build the next word for us? And she could go over there and spell the next word. So since, now we're practicing some classroom management, I called on her and I had her come over and do the next word. And then I could call on another friend, or I could call on another friend, and we could build our words together. So in this example, I actually pre-created the phonics lesson, and we were able to interact. I'm in California. Dominique is in Mexico. Ruthie and George are in other parts. We got Ruthie from Canada. We are working synchronously and collaboratively in this white space. So how cool is this that my students can do that? There's some questions start coming up right now. People say, what if they delete it? Can they write whatever they want? So there are a lot of really, big questions here. Yes, right now, George could be a turkey and he could go in and delete my piggy. But I do, instead of, getting upset, we can use that as an opportunity. Hey, George, let's learn about the undo button, and we can teach them how to bring those things back. So there are some things there, right, where, oh, there he goes. He went and deleted my piggy. But I could teach him to hit that little, on the upper left-hand corner, there's a little button, and that's called the undo button. So I could teach George to undo his mistake and put that piggy back, or I could just add it back in. Teaching kids, getting them familiar. The first couple times you go into this, you may want to just be silly and let them move things and delete things and add things. Empower them with the ability to fix it if they break it. And that's just a really great way to get started. We're going to continue on. I'm going to go back up to my page menu. Remember, all my frames are across the top, and you can see here that I can slide and navigate. Oh, George, you are a turkey. Did I look at that? He gobble, George. So you can see I can change between and navigate there. And I also notice here across the top, I see that I have my different users that are along. And so I can actually see who's on which page. I can see that all of these students are where I asked them to be, but it looks like I've got another version. Oh, there we go. So I can see, let me zoom in on that. When I'm logged into people I know, I can see their actual user icons. So if these were your students, you'd be able to see where they are, and you could see what page they were on. Now, when I do this anonymously with people, meaning if I just share a link, these are just some of those little anonymous critters. But because these are my friends, I could say, hey, Ruthie, get back over here, right? They could be on the different pages with me. So how fun. On frame 6, I'm now going to model how I made this activity, right? So I'm going to talk about how I made this activity. I think the question that just came in the chat says something about how many, if that is how many pages, the pages is how many pages is 20, and how many participants is 50. But can you, I see that was a good question.
Yeah. So Ana Luisa is asking, when you share a Jamboard with all of your students, can you block a student if you needed to?
So one thing I can do, not a particular student, I can change the sharing settings. So just some background. Right now, this one is shared directly to a handful of individuals. I shared it directly to them, and I shared it to them in a way that they could edit. So if you're familiar with the sharing settings, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. I don't want to show off my friends' email addresses, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of that right away. I can share directly with people here. And in that example, I shared directly with them, and I typed in their names, and they have edit rights. But I also say that anyone who has the link with this, I can decide that anyone with the link can be an editor, or anyone with the link is a viewer. So if I just want to demonstrate this, they can watch it. So in this example, it says anyone with the link. So some people I gave access directly, and they have edit rights. And I can decide a link, I could give it to them in a way that they could view or edit. So if I wanted to share this with kids just as a model so they could watch, I can give it that view. We'll talk a little bit more about how we can share this as we continue on. But so we can share it either way. We can either do it so they can view or so they can edit. I want to build, go ahead.
Sorry, Susan, there was one other question a little bit earlier. Someone was asking, will you share the Jamboard with everybody, or are you just demoing it with a few?
This one right now, I would definitely be able to, I can put, before we skedoodle, I will, if you want to wrap up at the end, I'll give a forced copy link. So if anyone wants this as a model, they can click on the link we offer, and it will make their own copy of it.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And then while I was asking that, 2 other questions came in. Is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Lydia is asking us, is the only way to connect my students to Jamboard having a Gmail account?
So yeah, students do have to be logged in to access this Jamboard. And if I'm incorrect in that statement, please someone correct me, but I'm fairly certain we tried it. Like if I could just give it to them anonymously and could they do it? I do believe that they had to be. So if I tried to open up an incognito window, I don't believe I could connect to it. It forces me to log into a Google account. So that is one thing. It is, it's a Google tool, and it does require that. So
okay. And then one other question from Eliana. She's saying, can the student use their mouse to write, or can they also use a keyboard in some instances?
So they can either use the touchpad on a laptop or the mouse. So I use this, in this example, this is my mouse moving. I can also use my touchpad on my thing. The keyboard doesn't write. The keyboard does not Right. So I have to have, and the text in this is even interesting. Like I have to use the sticky tab. I'll actually model that next.
Okay, perfect.
The sticky tab to type, but as far as the drag and drop, there has to be some element of touch. So
okay.
So I'm going to build an @word activity, much like we just did that pig activity. I'm going to do one with @words. So I'm going to say, build your @words. So a second ago, we did a word family activity with big words. And this time we're going to do @words. I can build my sticky, and I notice that there's different colors I can choose here. So if I wanted to make this one blue, and some people ask now about font and sizes. There's this box right here that, or this line, and this tells me how much space I have left. Let me just push a bunch of letters here. I can just push a bunch of letters, and you can see it does limit the number of characters. So the more letters I push, that little indicator at the bottom tells me how much I can type. So there's a limit to how much you could fit in a sticky. And when I put it in here, let me go ahead and save it. I can't really change the font size, but what I can do is resize this sticky. When I select it, it gets a number of tools. I can rotate it, and I can resize by grabbing a corner. So when I create things, the text is always going to be on a sticky. Now, one thing to know is that when I go to edit this, you see in the top corner, I have my ... menu. I can edit it, and when I edit it, I can make this sticky transparent. So if I wanted the words to just be on the page and not on a sticky, I can also, so the sticky is still there. You can see it's still there, but I can also make it transparent. So here are my instructions, and now I want to insert a kitty cat, because remember, I want to do this as a an @word thing. So one thing I can do, and here's the menu of Jamboard. It's quite simple, and I like it. There aren't too many buttons to push. When you're talking about young learners, not having a lot of extra buttons is pretty handy. So now I'm going to demonstrate how to insert an image here for whatever reason I want to do it. So I'll use the image tool, and I have the typical choices. I could bring an image from my computer. So if I've taken an image or have an image, I can select it from my computer. I can also do a Google image search, grab things from my Google Drive, or if I'm using photos, I can grab it there. I'm going to do a Google image search. I like this because it brings up resources. I'm going to put in cat. When I search here, I'm going to actually do clip art. I like that term, clip art, or cartoon, so it's a kind of a fun kid looking one. And I actually add the word PNG, or the term PNG, and that's a little bit extra. The reason why I do that, sometimes you want something that is cut out, right? A transparent image doesn't have a background. So I could keep it just at cat clip art, but I'm going to go ahead and add PNG, because that's a little tip. If I want just things that are cut out, when I look at my search results, I see that they're more cartoon looking images. I notice that they don't always have backgrounds. So I'll select this kitty and put it in here. And when I put it in, remember, it's transparent. There isn't a box around it that, it is cut out or transparent. So I've started my activity, and I have my cat, and I have my instructions, and now I want to make those letter tiles. Remember how in the pig example, there was all the letter tiles. So I'll use the sticky tab example here, sticky tab, and I'm going to make these ones yellow, and I'm going to say C. And notice, since there's only one letter on there, those tiles, the letters are fairly large. I'm going to switch gears to be a scaffold for my kids, and I'm going to spell H-A. So if my young learners weren't quite sure how to spell the words, they could find related words there. Let me do B-A-T. And I could continue on with different colors. So I could go ahead and make my letter tiles. So here we go. And I can make a little pile here. And at this point, if I wanted, I could either spell the word or I could call on a friend. But you see how I have created this little pile of letters, and I can ask my students to do this @word activity where they could click and drag and build a word for me. Now remember, if I want my students to do it with me synchronously, what I would do is oh, thanks, George. What I would do is share it to them in a way they can edit it. I could give them an editable link, or Google Classroom can help me with this too. Let's continue on though, and let's talk about a few other ways we might use Jamboard for early literacy. We're going to move to math next. Now here's a great example. We're talking about long vowel I, and in English, I know that this says in, but in English, when I add that E, the sound of that vowel changes, and now it says pine. So I could do a variety of little phonics tasks. I can also do some text annotation. In this example, I have some text. This is text from my curriculum, but wherever you get text off the internet that belongs to you, that you're allowed to use, I took a screenshot, ka-chink, and I just put it in here. Now, in the mobile version of Jamboard, I can actually pull text out of my Google Drive. I'm in the web-based version, but in the mobile version, there's an extra button on my toolbar that allows me to add things from my drive. I took a screenshot of this. I brought it in as a picture, but now I can use my highlighter tool. Let me go grab my highlighter tool, and I can choose the highlighter, and I'll make it yellow. And the instruction says, use the highlighter tool to mark the nouns, people, places, things. So I'm doing a lesson on nouns, and I might go through and mark the nouns, animals, doctor. So I could go through there, but now I could ask a friend as I go along. I might ask a friend to do some additional ones. So if I wanted, if I'm teaching a lesson, maybe I model a couple, but then I could call on a student to do some. But this is where teachers start asking, well, what if I want them to do their own version of this? I want them to annotate their own text. That's where Google Classroom comes into play. In Google Classroom, remember, I could take my Jamboard, I could take just a single page like this and distribute it to each learners using that make a copy for each student feature. So here I have early literacy. We're locating parts of speech within the text. So different ways I can use it. I could do it as letter cards. I could use it as straight writing. I could use it for text annotation. Man, so many options. Same thing here. Maybe we're looking for examples of dialogue. We have students highlight the things within the quotation marks that show when someone's speaking. I continue on, and this will be the last literacy example, but I want to talk about this one. And if my friends who are playing along would like to participate, I would love for it there. It says, what do you see? Use the pen or sticky notes to describe this picture. So when we have young learners, we know one of the most important things is for them to develop their language. And whether that's English or Spanish or both, we want to make sure that they are using nice, rich sentences. Some kids might say something as simple as soccer ball. They identified a single word there. But I might ask them to write a nice, rich, complete sentence. I might say, can you write a nice, thorough sentence with as many details as possible? And someone who's just developing in language might say they are playing soccer or football, right? No social distancing. That's what I see too, absolutely. And someone could say, the boys and girls are chasing the ball across the grassy field, right? I could see the boys and girls are chasing the ball across the grassy field. So as students start adding their sentences, they could keep it simple, they are playing, or we can model how they could write nice, rich sentences using the sticky tab. They are wearing shorts, right? Absolutely. You know, we could develop our sentences, and we could do it either on their own. Oh, the boys and girls are chasing the ball across the grassy field. Thanks, George, for putting my sentence in there for me. So we could use that. I'm like, oh, that's a great one. And we could continue there, right? So we can have kids work collaboratively, synchronously, or we could use this asynchronously. I can put this into Google Classroom where students could write their own example. So Jamboard, we've been talking about Jamboard for literacy. And I'll pause again, Dominique, if you don't mind, before we jump over to the numbers. Does anyone else have some questions here, Dominique, that have come in that I can help with?
Yeah, there's actually a comment here again from Ana Luisa just saying she was just thinking, is there a way that she could use Screencastify to give instructions to the little ones about the activities she wants them to do in Jamboard? Because if you're sharing it in classroom, it's important that they still see you.
Yeah. So one thing about Jamboard is, like, yes, you can make a Screencastify. I think that's a great idea to record a screencast, much like we're recording this right now, to demo this and show the different features. One thing I cannot do is put that screencast into Jamboard. Jamboard does have limitations when it comes to video and audio. You know, a lot of times these are great activities, but some of those extra features like video, audio, how do I change the font? How do I lock the background down? Those are really common questions. They're just not offered yet here in Jamboard. And I think I'm okay with that, because every time we add some of those additional features, that adds more buttons. And when I'm thinking about young learners, I like to keep it simple. Those kinds of things we're talking about, we can still do in slides. Slides allows me to embed an audio instruction. Slides allows me to embed video instructions. In Jamboard, what you could do in that situation is you can make that great little screencast to explain this to them. And in Google Classroom, I would just connect the screencast in the same assignment so they can first watch you talking about it, modeling it, and explaining it. And then they could click on the link for the Jamboard and go do their part in there. So you can definitely make that screencast. One thing we can't do, unfortunately, is embed it into this Jamboard, but that's okay. Remember, we're keeping this thing simple and clean as easy. So any other questions before we continue on to math or numeracy?
Nope, that was all for now.
Awesome. Let's continue on. I'm going to go up to my top here. Remember, that's where my frames are. I can see that I am on frame 10 of 19, and I'm going to click that menu because it shows me where we are. And I see that Ruthie is already over on the next page waiting for us, ready to do the next activity. So I'll jump over there. Now, if at any time I wanted to add another page, I can hit this plus sign and it would throw a blank page in the middle. And if I wanted to reorganize my pages, up here across the frames menu, I can grab a frame and I can move it to other places. So this frames menu is interactive because I can drag and drop and I can use that plus sign. So let's get on over to this math one here though. And I see some number tiles. I have number tiles here and I can do some basic things. I see Ruthie's there. She's helping us out. She's going to go ahead and put these in order from least to greatest. So I have in this example where they're counting numbers from least to greatest, and I might have the students put them in order from littlest to biggest, and she could sort these for us in order. Additionally, we might be doing some kind of patterns, like in the other pile, I see counting by tens, but I could also do counting by twos or by fives. So I can put numbers in order, or I might be able to write a list, and I might leave some blanks where students have to write what comes next or what's next in the pattern. So in all these examples, I can have students sequence and sort numbers just to help develop that number sense. So in this example, just so you see, we use the sticky notes. And we see that Ruthie likes things to be in line. I love it. Oh, and George showed us that he can insert an image too. He used his Bitmoji to drop it in to give the feedback. Good job, Ruthie, right? Awesome job. I'm going to continue on to the next frame and just show some examples here. This says building patterns. So in this one, I might have a student build like an AABB pattern or an ABAB. That's something we work on in pre-K or in K. We talk about building patterns and repeating patterns so students start recognizing that. So my students could grab one of these and they can come through and build an AB, whatever pattern I ask them to do, to start looking for connections. Or maybe I want them to do ABB, and I can talk about the different types of patterning we might do with these. And in this example, you notice that the background's different. I can change the background with some limited options. When I click on the background option, it does show me I have some basic options. I can make different colors, or I can add some dots or lines. Not a lot of choices, but one thing that we found is that we could actually take a screenshot of something and put it as the bottom layer. Now, you can't lock it like you do in slides, but we could take a screenshot of something to make a different background there. But students could delete that just like a lot of the other things here. I'll continue on here, and I see this next one because this is one of my favorite things. And I actually learned this from our friend George here about how to put emoji in and use that in a transparent way. So you see here, I have all these cute little stars, but the truth is these stars are not images. They are emoji on a transparent sticky tab. What are you talking about, Susan? I'm going to insert the other part. So I need an AABB pattern, but in order to have that, I need a second item. So I'm going to come over to my sticky tab. Remember, all of my tools in Jamboard are over here on the sticky tab. So when I click the sticky, I'm going to use my emoji menu. Now, depending on what device you're on, this could look different. On my device, I'm on a MacBook. I use my two-finger touch like this, or my right click, depending on if I have a mouse or if I'm on a PC. If you're on a Chromebook, emoji menus look even different. But most devices have some option, or there are websites that allow you to get emoji. So I'm going to use mine, and I see right away on mine that one of my choices is emoji. So I'm going to choose my emoji menu, and I'm going to grab one of my emoji and drop it in there. So my pattern is now going to be hearts and stars. So When I zoom back out, I'll make sure I make this one transparent, because if I hit save, watch what happens. Now I have the heart on a green thing. And I don't know if I love that so much, but I can ... edit this, and I can make this transparent. Okay, so that was a lot of steps. I don't want to have to do that over and over again. I can duplicate this once I format it. So maybe I want to make it bigger or smaller, so I get it exactly how I want it to be. And then I can either ... one of my choices there is duplicate, but that's still more clicks. I use the keyboard command Control D or Command D if you're on a Mac, because what that does is allow me to put a whole bunch of them all at once, D, and now I have a lot of them, and so I can make the pile here of hearts, and my friends could do that. Thanks, George, for that help. Appreciate that. Awesome. So he can do his pattern with his images too. Or is that Ruthie? Was that Ruthie? Oh, Ruthie is the one doing the pictures. Thanks. Awesome. So she realized that she didn't have what she needed, so she went ahead and made her own manipulatives by bringing in that picture. So cool. All right, let's continue on. We started making patterns. What other mathy things might we do with this? Well, on the next page, on frame here, this is a screenshot, and this one is not interactive. This is an example of where I took an example, but you can see that I combined a few things here. I use the tool or the website called Which One Doesn't Belong. And if you're not familiar with Which One Doesn't Belong, it's called WODB, Which One Doesn't Belong.ca, right? So WODB.ca is how I brought in that background image. And I asked the question of the students, which one do you think doesn't belong? And so they're supposed to look at all 4 of those images there. And I see there's one that's pink, there's one that has 3. And the students were supposed to make a decision about which one they felt doesn't belong. They grabbed the check mark and slid it to the one they voted for. I see that a lot of them voted for the one in the upper right-hand corner, where they said that that one didn't belong because there were 3 and the rest have 2. And then we had them use the sticky tab feature to tell why. Because it's one thing for them to vote for which one they think doesn't belong, but more importantly, I want to know why they chose this one. The one in the top left doesn't belong because it's pink. It's a different color. The one in the bottom doesn't. So, and you can see that there's no right or wrong answer here, but the idea is that students look to see that there could be more than one answer to a problem. So when we're talking about building some of that early number sense and early numeracy, getting students to understand that there sometimes is more than one right answer is really, really useful. So I'm here on this frame. I'm going to continue on to the next frame. When I go to my next frame, you'll see that I have some base 10 blocks. So when I use base 10 blocks, I can continue to build that numeracy by having some drag and drop manipulatives. Now that our students are at home and they're not in class with us, we don't have the same boxes of manipulatives we haven't always had. And we don't know what class is going to look like when we get back in the future. But I do think that things like manipulatives, these hands-on materials, I don't know if we're going to be letting kids touch these as often for a while, right? That's kind of the world we're in right now. So we want to be very aware of contact. So these manipulatives that I might have in boxes in my classroom, can I find a way to reenact that virtually? So Ruthie can build a number for us. Like I might tell Ruthie to build 234, and Ruthie would then be able to take those things and she could build the number 234 by dragging and dropping the hundreds, the tens, and the ones. So I got these images from various different ones. These images for me came from the website, the Math Learning Center, and I did screenshots that brought these in for me. So I see it looks like Ruthie's building the number now. So she has 2 hundreds, 3 tens, and 4 ones, and that made 234. And I could even ask the student to go get a sticky note at this point, and maybe I could have her label using a sticky note the number 234. So when she gets done making them nice and neat and orderly, she could go use the sticky tab, and I could ask her to write it as a number 234. So maybe she'd get a sticky tab and write 234 using that sticky tab, or she might even continue on and write the word, because when we're talking about young learners, ooh, she's going to do it. You're going to do 200 plus 30 plus 4. That would be fabulous. Oh, look at this. So we could have them break it down into expanded form or expanded notation where they 200 plus 30 plus 4, or she might write 234 as a word, all the different ways. Or all of the ways all together. We could have 200s, 310s, all the different ways that we could have them label and show the number they built to help continue developing that number sense. 200s, 310s, 4 1s. Awesome, Ruthie. And again, we could do it as a word. We could do it as just the digits. We could do it a number of ways to help interact. So we could have these things. And again, digital manipulatives, I think, are going to be a big deal no matter what school looks like in the fall, because touching manipulatives, I love having that hands-on practice, but we do know that cleaning and sanitation are going to become a real issue when we go back to school. So even whether we're doing it right now virtually, again, Ruthie's in Canada and I'm in California, and we're able to work on this together. So how cool is this? Wherever your learners are, we can interact. I'm going to continue on. I have just a simple, again, math modeling. I wanted to give them a problem, have them model 6 plus 2. I want to show one more math thing here. Remember, I can add a page. So when I want to add a frame or a page, I go back up to my menu because I want to show how I can model with math problems. Oop, it might have too many pages. I'm going to have to delete one to make this happen. Let me delete this one. I'm going to go ahead and delete this one here and add another page because I'm going to use this page 17 right now, to model myself just writing a math problem. Remember how we talked about how we want to be able to show math and I want to be able to talk about math? Well, on a blank page like this, I can use my device, whether that's my phone or I have a small iPad and a stylus. I really love using a stylus. It makes it easier than trying to write with your finger, but all of these things work. I can model a math problem right now. So I'm going to change my pen tool and get a nice pen. And now I'm going to write something like 9 and 2. So I could be modeling my math problem here, but if I really want to go through the steps with students, we know in like first grade especially, we're trying to teach kids how to make tens. So I know that 2 is really 1 and 1 because I want to notice that I just made a 10. So here I can circle this. Ooh, I made a 10. We love making tens. We love making those friendly numbers. And now I can have that 10 and 1 makes, my answer, and my answer is 11. So here I go. I can say 11. So lots of ways to model with math, but that's a lot easier than me trying to do it on a whiteboard. Oh my gosh, so many ideas, so much potential. I do love Jamboard, but I do love this idea too. Our little learners can do so much if we give them the tools and let them try. Sometimes as teachers, we're afraid to let them push all the buttons or try the things. They're going to delete it. They're going to ruin it. You know what? Let's give them a chance because they can. K2 can too, right? They can do a lot more. And sometimes just letting them try, letting them scribble, letting them drag and drop, they can do so much. So once again, this is Jamboard. And if you want to learn more about Jamboard, if you're not familiar with the Google Teacher Center, the Google Teacher Center has trainings on this, right? There's trainings that walk you through all the steps. So the Google Teacher Center has some trainings where you can learn more about Jamboard. And this is me, Susan Stewart. You can find me on Twitter at Tech Coach Susan. And my website, where I have a presentation on Jamboard and more, is available at primarily.google.rocks. Thank you so much for listening today. Especially huge thanks to Ruthie and George and Dominique and everyone who's been able to play here. Muchas gracias para todos los, ¿cómo se dice? Educators.
Educadores.
Maestros y maestros, right? Teachers.
Maestros too.
This is such a great tool. Thank you so much for having me. Any more questions that I missed there? I see that George and Ruthie, man, these two, it's a dream team to be a part of some of the work that we're doing. I told them we were just doing another workshop. I said, hey, I'm going to go hang out in Mexico now. I just came from Canada to Mexico. Do you want to, and all across Latin America, you guys want, and they just coming in and decided to help. I love having this team of helpers. It's been a great time to just see how many people are sharing and having just great ideas for their learners.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. We have people like Felipe saying, wow, this is very interesting. Thank you. Maria was asking if we could do this in Spanish. So I was telling her that maybe next week we'll get someone to do this in Spanish. In fact, once we finish up here, we still have a few minutes, so I can show a few things in Spanish. But I think that's great. And then Ruthie, yeah, she was answering, just talking about mats as backgrounds to work with as well.
So if we have people stick around for just a minute, what I'm going to do is the thing I promised about getting a, what's it called? I'm going to, hopefully, I don't know what's going on here. Let me stop sharing. I'm going to drop a link into that chat. I'll take a couple more questions where people can make a copy of this very one. So if they
that
want,
would be awesome.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, I took it off the screen, so
Awesome.
you aren't seeing it.
Okay, and so now I am going to grab this. And so, yeah, any other questions? Or Dominique, have you had much experience with Jamboard before now?
You know what? I honestly hadn't, Susan, until I've started using it with some of my schools now with distance learning.
Yeah,
yeah, and I've seen a few people present on it. I've seen Darren talk about it. George has talked about it. And so I'm just kind of gathering ideas from all the great minds that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And then using that with the schools here in Mexico. And I don't know if you can hear this or not, Susan, but something really funny happened while you were presenting. All of a sudden, there's a mariachi band outside my house, like a few doors down. But anyways, you can hear lots of mariachi music.
Okay, I'm going to go down to the chat. Can I have access to the chat? Where do I put it in?
Yeah, you in comments, where you see comments. And if you can't find it, just share it with me, and then I'll put it in the chat for everybody.
Okay, I have the private chat. For some reason, I can't do that there. So I'm going to put a forced copy link. And if you're not familiar with this, you have to have a Google account. But when you do that, when you click on the forced copy link, what happens is it'll say, would you like to make a copy of this? And this one that we just created, you can have a copy of. And feel free to use and share. And my only thing is, if you make it better, send it back to me, right? Because I'd love to see what you do with this. So that link that Dominique is going to give you is going to be one that you can click on, right? And it'll make a copy of the one that we used today, just now. So we can go ahead and make a copy of this so that you could have the examples if you want. So that link there should do a copy, and then you can check it out. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you for being with us. And I just wanted to ask one more thing, Susan. The K2 Ken2. So if people look for that hashtag on Twitter or on social media, that's where they can find more resources, right?
More of my sources or my website, primarily google.rocks. But what I love about K2 Can2 is that there are teachers from everywhere using this hashtag. And so it's not just me. It is a whole community of educators who have this belief in what young learners can do. So at the K2 Can2 hashtag, it was, they're able to do that. Let me make sure that worked. Is that link working for anyone?
Someone just said that the link wasn't opening for them. I'm going to try it as well, just to see. And if not, we can get it in a minute. It does work.
Okay.
Así que I'm going to explain in Spanish.
Okay.
Para abrir este enlace, el enlace que Susan nos compartió, como puede ver en su pantalla, tienes que hacer una copia de esta presentación. Así que todos van a tener sus propias copias de la misma presentación. Por eso parece una pantalla así. Okay, they said they got it now.
Awesome, fabulous, cool. Alrighty, guys. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. We hope to see you again next week. We have 2 more weeks of elcolesigue. So
we'll have a lot of fun. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon.
Bye, Susan.
Bye.
Muy bien, pues ya van a estar conmigo por unos minutos más. Tal vez terminamos poquito antes hoy, pero quería repasar algo que nos estaba enseñando Susan. Así que voy a compartir mi pantalla también para que lo ven por ahí. Déjame si lo tengo. Muy bien. Y si tienen más preguntas, adelante, como puede ser de Jamboard o de otra cosa. Antes que empezó Mike, hace ratito les estaba enseñando cómo usar Toby for Chrome y cómo organizar tus páginas favoritas, tus sitios más como frecuentes, algo así. Pero aquí para que vean dónde está, si yo voy, por ejemplo, a mi Drive, quería enseñarles cómo crear un Jamboard en español rapidito, nada más para un repaso, porque las sesiones que hemos visto de Jamboard han sido como ya creados esas herramientas Y en caso si tú estás ahí pensando, híjole, sí quiero usarlo, pero ¿cómo lo hago? ¿O cómo puedo empezar de cero? Si tal vez tus alumnos no son los chiquitos o si por X razón quieres saber cómo hacer uno, en tu Google Drive, aquí picando nuevo, a ver si me deja abrir, ahí está. No sé si han notado este botón de más. Yo sé que yo he hablado de este botón más cuando estoy haciendo los formularios. Tuvimos una sesión de formularios hace unas semanas y aquí hay más cosas que uno puede hacer. Vimos una sesión de My Maps hace 3 semanas, creo. Hemos visto como sesiones de sitios de Google. Hice uno hace 2 semanas acerca de las nuevas plantillas. Así que como pueden ver, cada semana Google nos está dando más y más herramientas y más opciones. Así que Google Jamboard está aquí en su cuenta de la escuela, en nuevo, más, y aquí es Google Jamboard. Así que para empezar desde cero, si no habían visto cómo hacerlo, la herramienta sí está en español, como pueden ver en mi pantalla, dice Jam sin título, y es súper parecido a las otras herramientas, más que todo las presentaciones de Google. Pero aquí fácilmente es donde puedes cambiar tu título y ya poner como Jam para, no sé, tal vez 5º grado, algo así. Lo que tú enseñas, puedes poner lo que sea. Y aquí adentro, como decía Susan, todos pueden crear su propio Jamboard. Tú puedes hacer sus propios ejemplos. Ella estaba haciendo esos ejemplos de literacy, como de lectura para niños chiquitos, nada, agregando letras y poniendo como, tal vez estás trabajando en algo como de letras minúsculas y mayúsculas y ya así como sigues agregando y puedes poner varias letras ahí y tal vez están haciendo patrones como nos enseñó con las palabras o con las figuras. Algo aquí, a ver, lo voy a poner guardar. Puedes cambiar el color por ahí, lo cancelas. Eso es la nota adhesiva, como el post-it que nos estaba enseñando. Aquí es donde estaban poniendo imágenes. Cuando vieron las imágenes que surgieron ahí o como que aparecieron. Y lo que me encanta de cualquier cosa de Google, cuando queremos poner imágenes, hemos hablado de eso en otras ocasiones, pero ahí adentro tienes tu búsqueda de imágenes de Google y ahí puedes buscar lo que sea. Vi que estaban poniendo banderas y otras cosas así, o como esta foto de los niños jugando fútbol. Como tú puedes nada más buscar fútbol y ya te va a aparecer varias imágenes y desde ahí tú puedes poner uno y una actividad puede ser tan sencilla de poner la foto y si están en 5º grado ya, de hecho ya como más que las letras, eso sería más para chiquitos, pero con una foto podrías pedirles que ellos mismos hagan como un resumen de la foto y puede ser aquí y puede decir, no sé, están jugando fútbol en el atardecer o algo así. Como no tengo, seguramente, y hay errores, gracias a este spell check que siempre me ayuda con mis acentos en español. Pero bueno, pueden poner un párrafo, algo más como profundo ahí con la imagen. Pero está súper fácil de poder como agregar tus notas, poner tus imágenes. También vieron que tienes el láser, como si fueras en el salón usando uno de esos láseres que siempre nos molestaba tanto en los años pasados. Aquí también tienes el pluma y aquí es donde puedes cambiar como el tipo de pluma, el color, marcador, todo eso y aquí puedes borrar lo que sea. Y como decía Susan, aquí arriba puedes ver tus imágenes. Solo tengo una diapositiva ahorita, pero fácilmente puedo agregar uno y de ahí puedo irme como cambiando el orden de mi presentación. Pero algo que me encantó que dijo Susan, porque tuvimos una pregunta, si no me equivoco, era de Ana Luisa, que nos decía que cómo compartes eso con tus alumnos si quieres trabajar de una manera asíncrona en lugar de trabajar en vivo. Así que eso súper fácilmente adentro de Google Classroom, vas ahí a tu cuenta de Google Classroom Y perdón que estoy abriendo todo en vivo. No tenía nada aquí como preparado bien, nada más estoy como trabajando en vivo según lo que vimos. Pero aquí en mi clase de aprendizaje a distancia, yo puedo poner, por ejemplo, trabajo en clase, yo voy aquí y si quiero, eso es, ¿sabes qué? Yo soy una alumna en esta clase, no soy la maestra. A ver si tengo una. Muy bien, estoy en esa del elcolesigue. Aquí en trabajo en clase, crear tarea. Y eso es donde decía que fácilmente tú puedes buscar de tu Google Drive este Jamboard que recién existe. Como es algo súper rápido, pero muy potente ahí. Obviamente no está terminado mi Jamboard, pero para enseñarles rápido, lo pongo ahí. Y lo que decía otra pregunta, otro comentario, si quieres que ellos están trabajando en eso, pero en sus propias copias, como al final Susan nos dio nuestras propias copias del Jamboard, aquí en Google Classroom puedes hacer una copia para cada alumno, así que ya no tienes broncas, no hay problemas, es súper fácil que todos tienen su copia, pueden trabajar en ello individualmente y te lo entregan tal cual. Así que puedes ver realmente cómo están progresando cada alumno. Y en el caso, si no lo habían hecho antes, con cada tarea en Google Classroom puedes agregar varias cosas. Así que puedes poner ahí tu video o tu vínculo a un screencast. Como Mike nos estaba enseñando de hacer este Screencastify, puedes poner tu video ahí diciendo, hola, ¿cómo están alumnos? En este Jamboard el día de hoy tienes que hacer X cosa. Y ahí vas dando las indicaciones y ya como pongas aquí Jamboard, pongas tus instrucciones y asignar. Obviamente eso es un ejemplo súper como breve, rápido, manera express, pero ya con eso puedes asignar tu Jamboard. Así que lo creas desde tu Google Drive para recordarles, Google Drive, nuevo, más, busca Jamboard. Ya de ahí puedes hacer lo que ustedes quieren, lo que más les sirve para tus alumnos y lo compartes en Google Classroom. Es lo ideal. Pero muy bien, voy a ver si hay algo de preguntas por aquí. Muy bien. Ok. Ahorita veo que hay una pregunta de algunas presentaciones. Ahorita le enseño. Nada más para recordarles, como estamos terminando el día de hoy, todo nuestro horario para esta semana y las 2 semanas que nos quedan está aquí en el elcolesigue.tv y aquí tienes horarios y talleres. Y vi que Eliana, estabas preguntando dónde puedes ver la sesión de formularios de Google. Igual que tenemos aquí todos los horarios y talleres de lo que viene, también aquí en talleres previos tenemos todos los talleres que hemos dado en esas 6 semanas hasta la fecha y los puedes buscar ahí. O también como nivel A, como compañía, tenemos nuestro sitio o nuestro canal de YouTube. Así que también a través de este canal de YouTube, ahorita lo pongo en el chat, también pueden acceder todos sus videos, los tutoriales, los ciento tantos sesiones del elcolesigue. Y aquí puedes buscarlo. Y están trabajando, de hecho, el equipo está como tardando en cargar. Pero están trabajando, de hecho, el equipo del Edelvives en esta página para ponerlos todo como con hashtags o como filtros para buscar exactamente algo. Mientras eso está cargando, te enseño también nuestro canal de YouTube es, ¿cómo se dice? yt.nive.l. Perdón, está tardando, como tengo mucho abierto a la vez en mis varias pantallas aquí. Muy bien. Pero en YouTube, en nuestro canal, también puedes encontrar tutoriales de 1000 cosas de las herramientas de Google, de cómo empezar con tu clase a distancia. Y aquí puedes ver, eso es lo que estamos viendo ahorita, del día 28. Y viendo abajo puedes ver la página principal con los videos populares o también puedes buscar, ¿dónde está? Videos, aquí, para ver como los videos, como cada video. Poco a poco estamos agregando todos los talleres o sesiones del elcolesigue con números para que vean uno por uno en lugar de ver 4 horas del día completo. Y también tenemos unas listas de reproducción y estamos siempre trabajando en mejorar eso para que busquen aquí el elcolesigue, sesiones individuales, videos que me gustan, y tenemos varios de webinars, de Google Drive. De hecho, Eliana, tenemos una lista de reproducción, un playlist de formularios de Google, y tal vez ahí mismo encuentras lo que estás buscando. Pero ya con eso vamos a estar terminando este día juntos, así que muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Yo voy a estar con ustedes mañana. Mañana tenemos a George Bárcenas, quien estuvo con nosotros en esta sesión de Susan, y también a mí. Voy a estar presentando el día de mañana. Así que nos vemos todo mañana. Voy a poner un video y con eso ya nos vamos.